Hello, everyone. This is Aqua, co-founder of She Leads Africa, and welcome to today's webinar, which is focused on building your career brand. Now, many of us think that only celebrities or athletes need to have a distinctive brand, but in today's job market, that's not the case. Even you, as a young professional, you need to have something that you're well known for so that you can find opportunities. We're so grateful today to have Janet Asante with us. She is an HR expert with over 18 years of experience working with corporate executives, working with CEOs, and sitting on the other side of the table when it comes to hiring decisions. So Janet is going to share with us kind of what you should be thinking about when it comes to developing your own brand. How do you become well known and an expert in an area? How can you even become well known within your company and start to identify potential opportunities for yourself? So we're excited for this discussion and really looking forward to all of the insights that Janet's going to share with us. So Janet, welcome to today's webinar.
Hi, thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here. So that was a great lead in. So today we're going to talk all about how to build your career brand in the workplace. So some of this information are going to be new to you and some things you may have heard before, but we're going to go a little bit deeper. And my goal is to make sure you walk away today with some real tips on how to starting tomorrow to really just jump into it and make sure you're managing your career the way that you expect it to be. So as we talk about career brand, we're going to talk about what does it mean to be you, Career Inc. Why is it important in the first place? It's really important because at the end of the day, you're always being judged. Whether you want to believe it or not, people are judging you every moment of your life. All your interaction, all your discussions, what you put on social media, your LinkedIn, all of those at any given time, people are going to look at those pieces of information about you, and then they're going to make a decision on who you are. So rather than having other people make a decision on who you are, you want to make sure you frame that identity. So that's what it means to have a career brand at the end of the day. You know, the word branding is really known for marketing, but it's also really important for careers. And I don't typically like to use the word brand. I know it's well known and that's what's in everyone's mind frame right now. But I like to use the word identity. Identity to me is more clear. It's what people pick you out in a big crowd of a number of applicants or in a big company where there's so many people who are really, really smart. What is your identity? Who are you? How do we pick you out of the pack and say, this is clearly this person and they have these attributes, these traits, and they do this very well. So what is your career identity / brand? Why is it important? It's important because, let's be honest, in today's market, it's very competitive. There's a lot of smart people now. People are very savvy, intelligent. There are women and people are going to college at a more faster pace than any other decade before. And so what does that mean? That means that the playing field is much wider and deeper. And so for you to be known and seen, you have to have something to give that's a little bit above what everyone else is doing. But at the same time, there are people who aren't very smart out there doing really dumb things on social media that's making them not look their best. And so while there's really smart people, there's also people who aren't exactly moving up in the ranks. And so there's an opportunity for you to really shine. So let's talk about what does a brand look like? What it looks like is when you think about Apple or Microsoft or the products they both produce. When you think about the iPhone, you trust when you purchase it that it's going to be a very sleek phone. It's going to come with all these different widgets and things that's going to help you do your job, whether you're taking pictures or emails. The functionality is going to work and it's going to be very slick. It's going to be hip. It's going to be cool. You know what you're getting. So I know you're not a product, but in the same sense that something you purchase because you trust it and it's dependable, people want to make sure you're also trustworthy and dependable and they can count on you and you have a lot of versatility. So in that same token, you want to make sure your career brand follows that same policy, which is trustworthy, friendly, versatile, dynamic, fresh, always one step ahead. And so we're going to look at it that way. So how do we get started? You get started by first thinking through of all the things people say about you that's special. When you start trying to create your brand, it's also about perception. So what are people thinking of you? You know, your friends may compliment you on a particular skill that you have. What's that skill? Are you someone that people see as they can always count on to give them hard facts? Someone that is always on time, someone who's organized, someone that's always trendy, who can really spot things, who's ahead of style, someone who's a good communicator, who's very strong and analytical, or someone who's a whiz, who's a financial whiz, or is a great writer. All of those things are what you hear, what you've been told through your childhood, through your friends, or when you do a project at work and your boss compliments you and say, I'm going to give you this particular project because I know you're good at managing teams. Those things that you hear often should be all part of your career brand. So start writing those things down to develop your brand, and so you can start owning those pieces. At the same time, you also want to audit your social media to make sure your social media is aligned with those messaging that you know is important for you and your brand. Your Facebook, your LinkedIn, your Instagram, you really want to make sure there's nothing out of odds. If you're trying to present someone who's a leader, you don't want to, retweet or repost comments that are degrading someone or bullying someone in the media, because you're supposed to be this leaderly person. If you are in the financial industry, you want to be taken seriously. You want to make sure you're commenting on articles that are related to your brand. If you're a creative person, you're following people who are also in the creative space. You're connecting with those people. You're sharing things you find creative, so you can kind of curate your own style and your own ideas on your social media pages. And things that you comment, things that you choose to say should all follow that brand. And I'm not saying that when you do that with your brand, that you're becoming someone you're not. The whole purpose of a career brand is to identify all the things that you see are your strengths, things that you find are the things you do very well. And then you walk into that. You walk into it by owning it and making sure those pieces show up in all of your social media sites. And if you're an entrepreneur and you are given a service or a product, are you wearing your product? Are you always telling people the passion why you started your service? Are they hearing the story behind the actual product? We know about Steve Jobs, that he didn't finish college and he was really passionate about figuring out a phone that can be, or technology that can really move things. But it doesn't really talk about Apple. The first iPhone commercial didn't really feature a phone. It featured things that really showed the possibilities of what life could be with something very dynamic. So you shouldn't always be selling. If you're an entrepreneur, you should be selling, but you should also be thinking about the story behind your product and also selling the entire image that comes together. And if you're in the workplace, you want to also make sure that whatever you're tasked to do, building your brand means that you're not letting people down. People know they can trust to come to you, and they're going to get the same results each time. You're not going to be wishy-washy. You're not going to be inconsistent. Your brand is always going to stay true, which is whether you are known as someone who is detailed, so there's not a lot of errors on your reports. If you're a communicator, you're the one that's always signing up to present for the team, and your presentation is very on the mark, very concise. All of those pieces go towards your brand. So as I mentioned when I first started, you're always being judged. And so with that in mind, you always want to make sure that your brand and everything is dotted together. I'm going to also talk to you about what are the ways for you to market yourself at work. How do you use your brand if you've identified your strengths and you've created potentially an elevator speech? And what an elevator speech is, when we say elevator because you're stuck in an elevator with someone for a few seconds. You only have a few seconds till the door is open, and they ask you, what do you do, or who are you? When that question happens, can you quickly on the tip of your tongue share details about yourself that quickly expresses who you are? So creating that elevated speech is something you do take time to do, and you memorize that so that it's there. And the quick way to do that is identify, again, your strengths, identify the things that people comment on the fact that you do really well, and then finding a way to say that in 10 words or less, okay? Really, really quickly. So for example, if I was in the elevator with someone for a few seconds and asked me, what do you do? I say, oh, I am an HR director who leads organizations to be successful. I find them talented people, and I make sure the company is growing and doing exactly what they need to do to be successful. Elevator open, we both go out and potentially continue talking. So find your elevated speech, write it down, make it short and sweet, repeat it over and over again to yourself and to others when they ask you about yourself. So once you have that elevated speech down, you have to begin thinking about how do you brand and market yourself. So how you brand and market yourself also includes tooting your own horn. Naturally, for most of us, we don't like to talk about ourselves. We don't like to brag, but we need to do that in order for people to understand our brand. If you think about it, since I mentioned earlier that people are going to judge you, wouldn't you rather have the right words that you attribute to yourself being the words they attribute to you? So that's why you have to speak about yourself and speak about your accomplishments, because in that way, you are putting the right words in their mouth and in the right images in their mind when they pull up you, especially when a company is downsizing, making a decision to lay off people, making a decision to promote, or making a decision to shuffle the deck and move people around. When that's done and they're sitting there looking at the list, the image that they think of you, you want it to be strong, you want it to be concise, you want it to have all your attributes that you think are your strengths. That way, you're not shortlisted and moved to the side because no one knows you. So in order for someone to know you, you're going to have to brag a bit at work. And so, for example, when you brag, a lot of people start, or not brag in essence, but when people mention to you, tell me more about yourself, tell me more of your strength, and you're marketing yourself in the workplace on why they should choose you for a project or why they should hire you. Folks usually start with, I went to this school, I did this job, and it's very fact-based. So one of the things that I recommend for people who are in these shoes when they're marketing themselves to internally or into a job interview or whatever it is where they need to show their brand, is to tell stories. Stories, everyone loves a good story, okay? And stories are memorable. We remember stories. And when you're walking someone through a story, they connect, they see more, it's more vivid, it's more lively. And so your brand that you're connecting with people should also be very vivid and lively. So we've all been in a situation where someone asks you, how did you get into HR? Or how did you get into marketing? Or how did you decide to build She Leads Africa? Those things are gonna come up either at work, or they're gonna come up in networking places, or in personal life, and when you just in the grocery store, wherever. And you remember, all those spaces are places where your brand should be consistent and your brand should come through. So when you're in that situation, rather than just say, oh, well, I went to college and I got a degree in HR and then I, went to this job. No, this is an opportunity to show your brand, show your strength. So in order to do that, for example, for me, I would say, that is a great question. I can't believe I'm celebrating my 18 years in HR this year. Time flies when you're having fun, and I've had a fun ride through my career being in HR. I started off really green as in a college student that didn't know much about HR. And I got my first HR job as an assistant. I learned, I watched my manager, I soaked up everything I possibly could, and I kept working hard, doing the things that other people on my team didn't want to do. I sharpened my pencil to make sure that I was on top of the industry and the trends and was always ready at a moment's notice when my boss needed anything. And through that, I continued to get promoted. And as I got promoted, I took on more responsibilities. And as I took on more responsibilities, I realized it was time for me to leave, and I took another job in a technology firm. And then between that, I got my master's degree while also leading a team of 5 in a very interesting financial industry. And so through that progress, I really learned how to be a successful HR executive. And then before you know it, I'm here in front of you leading this awesome company that I'm working at right now, being a leader to both executives and to employees. So wow, it's been a great ride, but it's been fantastic. So in that example I just gave you, I shared that my strengths, which was I am I love to learn. I'm someone that's committed to growing. I am someone that moves up progressively, that I'm always looking at the next challenge. So I like to be challenged. And that in between that, I went to school. I didn't just list where I just went to school before. I showed that I'm someone that was able to go to school and get a master's degree in between working at the same time. And at the same time, my energy, most likely when I was talking, I had really high energy and was like, wow, here I start off really green and here's how far my journey came. So that's, identify your story and your accomplishment and make sure that comes through very well when you are describing yourself, and don't make it just a boring story of where you went to college and how many years you stayed at a particular company, because it really doesn't matter at the end. It's really who you are and what you accomplished. So that's one suggestion I have for you. So while it's important to have stories, as I mentioned, and also important to write down your strengths and your compliments and have your elevated speech, another key aspect of really managing your career brand is your visual identity. Your visual identity is what you look like, your appearance, because it's a whole total package. I recommend to everyone to always have a signature item. What is your signature item? Are you someone who loves bold colors? Do you love statement pieces, necklaces? Do you try to incorporate some of your heritage? I have a good friend who wears African prints and incorporates that into her wardrobe. And so that's like her signature look. People can identify her as someone that wears that often. Statement pieces. So identify what you love to wear. This is not what's in fashion. This is not what's trendy or what Vogue told you is what to wear for the season. This is what you love, that you just naturally like. For me, I like earth tone colors. I like bold jewelry made in Ghana. So if you're that person, wear those statement pieces, because people will start connecting that image with you. Make sure your look is consistent, all the time. So in terms of your brand, if you want to show a very leaderly look, or someone who's an executive or someone who's creative and interested, make sure your attire says the same thing. So I would imagine a very creative person wearing a blue dark suit all the time. They're going to show their style. It's going to be individualistic and it's going to be unique. At the same time, if you are an executive, not to say you also have to wear a blue suit, but there is an executive presence that you want to exude. And that executive presence is someone who's tied together, who's really organized. And it could be a very interesting creative outfit if you're an executive, but the look should be very slick and very streamlined and very ready to take charge kind of look, and very confident. So making sure that happens really improves your presence. So another piece is also just how you carry yourself. How do you stand? How do you walk into a room? Do you walk into the room very meek and shy? Do you ask for permission to sit down, or do you just sit down and take that seat because you have that executive presence or you're really ready to own it? So your brand is not just your identity and how you're dressing, but how do you carry yourself? What, do you, are you thoughtful when you speak, or do you just blabber on about things that doesn't really make impact on a conversation? Are you thoughtful? Are you careful? Do you send thank you notes to your teammates after they have done a good job. Just, your presence. How do you go about your work in the office that everyone can point and say, I can count on this, I can count on Janet to be someone that's going to be thankful, that's going to come in very organized. Her look is going to be on point, and she's going to be interesting. So all of that is, again, very important going to create your brand. So now that we've talked about your brand, and also another piece that I didn't mention is you want to stay fresh, you want to stay relevant, you want to stay up to date. Not to say you want to be trendy, but you of course don't want to pull out a very outdated look if you're trying to be someone who's creative and who's also ahead of style. So that's really key. So we've talked about style, we've talked about your elevated speech, and we've also talked about owning your stories and your accomplishment and sharing those stories. Now let's talk a little bit more about the workplace. How do you get your brand to be noticed, and how do you get that in the forefront? And to do that, there's a couple of things that I recommend everyone does to really move their brand in the workplace up, which is always try to connect yourself to high profile projects. In every company, there are projects that are going to be high profile, whether the client is high profile or the work means a lot to help move the company forward. Whether you're an entry-level person or someone that's very seasoned, find a way to help, even if you're just the person making copies in the middle of the night when everyone in the office is working hard on this major project, or you're the one that runs and get everyone coffee, or you're the one that's writing the engagement and you're writing the project. So when you're in that situation, you want to make sure you're raising your hand to help out some way in a high profile project, because when you do that, it'll allow you to be connected to a major success of the company and be part of the team, and you'll be memorable. Another part is when you're given a project, part of your brand should always be you're the person that always finishes the project before the deadline. You will not help your brand in any way, no matter what brand you're trying to achieve, if you do not meet deadlines and you do not deliver. So any task that you're given, you want to be that person that always gets it done quickly, because that will all go into your brand, which is dependable. Because remember, brand for everyone is that they can trust it and it's dependable. Another piece is always making sure you're promoting yourself. Again, I know it's not easy to do, but you always have to find a way to promote yourself in a way that's going to convey your strengths, and again, in a way where you're telling a story. So if you are in a team and you did a particular piece of it that really was impactful, that was really good and helpful for the entire team, make a note of that. Start creating a brag book for yourself. And a brag book is really just a journal that you just write some of the things that you've accomplished. I would encourage you to do it every week, because every week we have accomplishments at work. And so make a note of that. Like I gave that presentation for that particular client and they gave me kudos that it was a really good project or a good presentation. Write that down, tell a story about, how you got to present, and make note of it and continue to do that. And so you never know when a senior level person was like, hey, Janet, what have you been up to lately? I haven't seen you in a while. Then you can quickly spiel away, oh, actually, I held a presentation for client A. It went really well. In fact, they sent me a note and said, well done. And then, so if you don't have that written down, you don't have that memorized in some kind of journal, you won't have that opportunity to have that roll off the tip of your tongue when a senior executive or anyone in general asks you what you've been up to. Another way is to find ways to work with people outside of your department. It's very common for us to work with our team and just really be insular, but that doesn't help you, because you want your brand to go out. So, Apple didn't want to just sell Apple in America, iPhones in America. They wanted to conquer the world. And so in the same way, you want to do the same thing, which is, take people out to coffee in other departments, get to know them, because having that bird's eye view, that 30,000 feet perspective, understanding what other people do in their department, it's going to help you with your job to do your job better. And it's also going to connect you with someone in a different department. If you need help with something, you can go let me go talk to that person IT. They can help me move this project along in a way that I'm unable to do it because I don't have the skills. So it's really important to connect with other people in other departments. And also, when you're in your department, really strengthen your relationship with your teams. Build your brand by making sure that your team trusts you, that you're someone that they like in general, not like in a way where you're kissing up or you're not being direct or not being honest with them when the times when you need to be, but like you in the sense that they trust that you're consistent. You don't come in one day this angry person and the next day you're sweet as pie. You're consistent, you're very engaged, you're empathetic, you're kind, you think about them, you give them credit when you both work on a project together, so they just know that they can trust you. So that's really important because you start with the people in your network and then it kind of goes out. Make sure your manager knows what you're doing at all times. Sometimes I manage several people in my department and I don't always know all day long what everyone in my team is doing. But when my direct reports stop in my office and say, hey, I was able to get this done for so-and-so and it went really, really well. And in between my meetings, that's helpful. I remember and I'm like, wow, great job. Thanks for doing that. And if they didn't tell me, I wouldn't know what happened. So always stop in, of course, not when there's a crisis, but just stop in when your manager's kind of lax or in between a meeting and just drop a note, let them know what you're doing. And all of this helps to create your brands. Get involved in projects in the company that are not work related. So for me in HR, I'm always having focus groups or always having people come together to give me tips on how we can improve different things or to tell me what's going well. So when someone in the department says, hey, who wants to help plan the company picnic or who wants to help with this initiative that's not work related, but we need someone to do it, raise your hand every single time, because in those settings, you get an opportunity to network with higher ups that might sign up for that too, or with other people in other departments, and you'll be doing something that advances the company. And I guarantee you, the CEO and senior people will take notice. Attend industry conferences to network. So whatever field you're in, make sure you're going at least once a year to these conferences. And what that does is you can add that to your brand that you attended or these conferences, you learned this, you connected, you come back, you connect with people on social media, they see you, they see your brand, who you are, and you never know where you'll see them again in the next stage of your career. So that's all very helpful to do. And then what's really important to do that I think most people don't do is mentor junior people. When there's someone in your office that's just came out of college or is very new, mentor them. I really strongly believe that you never know when someone who is a junior person in your company might leave and become on the other side of your client, but they work with you, and how you treated them and how you mentor them and help them with the ropes to understand the company. That also builds your brand, because it builds your brand as someone who is able to help pull someone up and educate someone, and all of that goes to adding value to yourself and also to that person. So all the tips I just outlined are all ways, once you've identified what your brand is, to help you market it, help you get in front of people, and help you be very focused on who you are. Now, a few things I just want to leave you with before we turn into the Q&A, is that your brand shouldn't be something that you're looking online or who you admire. So I know there's folks who admire very accomplished people in the media, and it's very natural to think, I want to be like this person, so I'm going to model my entire career after that person. Well, I'm here to tell you that's not going to work. That's not what a brand is. A brand is what is true for you. What are the skills? What is the experiences that you've lived that's true for you? And what are the accomplishments that you have? Taking all of that information and packaging it into what are your values, what you believe in, what you like and what you don't like, and then using that and repeating that information every day through all different social media and how you speak, how you connect, how you dress. All of that is what makes your career brand unique. Again, The goal of a career brand is to be out of the pack, be in the front, be different. It is not to emulate someone else. And so at the end, if you take anything away from this webinar, it is no one can tell you what your career brand should be. I know there's tons of consultants out there that will tell you they can help you achieve what your brand should be. They can help you craft your message, but no one can tell you exactly what it should be. Only you can do that, but someone can give you more clarity on how you can go about making sure that's lived through in all your different spheres. So I'm going to turn it back to you, Afua. I think we're still on mute. I can't hear you.
Hey, Janet, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Got it. Okay. Sorry about that technical difficulty.
Okay.
Sorry about that technical difficulty. So I have some questions from our community members. So I wanted to get your perspective on them and share your feedback with our audience.
Sounds good.
So we have Hugo. She says, thank you for taking the time to chat with her. She said this is the first time she's ever been in a webinar, so she really appreciates it. She has a passion and an interest in dermatology, and she loves skincare, beauty, and business. And she wanted to know that, how can she reflect her personal interest when it comes into building her career, as a medical doctor? And what are some pieces of advice on how she can become an expert in this area when it comes to, beauty and medical health and dermatology?
That's a great question. I actually think that dermatology, skincare, and having the medical degree, you're already well ahead of the game because you have the degree. You have, who doesn't want to take advice from a doctor, right? So that's already that already has you on the playing field as an authority. So now you just have to market that some more. In terms of all your spaces, when you talk, you make sure you have all your research. You've done research on what skincare is the best skincare for people, and who your market is, because skincare is different from all different demographics. Someone that's in their 20s and their 30s and 60s, gender, racial identity, all of that's different. So figure out who you really feel comfortable speaking to as an audience, and then crafting your message for that.
Great. Now, what about when people have, different kinds of interests, right? So say one is a passion in beauty, but they also love healthcare, but they also love, technology. A lot of people have diverse interests and backgrounds. So what advice do you have for people who aren't really sure on how to combine all their different interests? Is it possible to do that in one brand, or do they really need to figure out what their main focus is going to be?
Okay, so in terms of work, because I'm more of a HR personnel employee take on this, and then I would just give commentaries. That's where that's where my skills are, right? On people and their skills. So in the workplace, if you are someone who has array of skills, but you've been hired to do a specific thing, I want to first advise you to make sure you really are kicking butt. Like you're kicking things out of the park. You are awesome at the technology. You're awesome at whatever the job is that you've been assigned to do, because at the end of the day, that's all your manager and your boss is going to focus on. But if you can do other things really well too, you can find ways to incorporate it, which is to join other teams, other projects, and showcase either your technology experience or your writing skills, whatever it is. Find projects in the workplace that you can help showcase that, so you can be seen as a Renaissance person that has a lot of different skills. In terms of just your personal life and your work place, if you are really good at something in your personal life and you want to bring it at work, there's nothing wrong. You have to make sure you figure out the right space. Every company is different. Some companies really just want you to focus on a particular aspect of your job. So if your company is one that is open to you doing different things, I would ask your manager for opportunities. I would sit down with them and look, I'm really good at this. I'd like to try out on this particular project that I heard is going to happen. So talk to people, get on those projects, but just really make sure you're reading your company very well, reading that your manager is open to you doing that. Because if they're not, I would focus really on your day job, your first passion, which is paying your bills at the end of the day.
The bills must be paid, so that is critical.
Yes.
Great. Well, Candace from Cameroon is really looking to build her brand as a digital economy expert when it comes to Africa. She served as the country manager for a Cameroon e-commerce website. She was featured in international publications and was able to attend some speaking engagements within the country. But now she wants to expand her scope and, start to get known or become known in other markets in other countries. And so her advice was, what are some things that you'd recommend that she does that will help her elevate her brand and reach more people now that she's become relatively well known in one market?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think what you do is you write articles. You respond to editorial comments on your industry, your space. You want to also network. You want to find opportunities to network with some of those target audience in the other countries. Go to some of those conferences, go to some of those places that they are, talk to people. At the same time, write. When you're trying to reach an audience or reach people, the best way right now in this age that we live in is to write articles or to start a blog or on your Instagram to feature other people who do what you are interested in the marketplace, feature them on your social media sites, as well as to reach out to them and network. So everything right now is more of information. We live in an information sharing age. And so as much information as you have that you are good at, that you think translates to other communities, other countries, and getting that information out, and also just educating yourself. Before you can get to any new market, whatever you're trying to do, you want to learn about that market. You want to learn the places where everyone go to share information or go to be known or be seen. And then you want to find a way to be there as well.
Great. Thanks so much for that one. Now, the next question is around that area. So Makiba has built her brand with her company, but now she wants to step out on her own. I think many of us, when you're in the corporate space, you become well known as this company's person or representing this company. So what advice would you have on moving from representing a company and having your brand or expertise tied to one area to really having it be an independent brand and expertise that you own as an individual, not tied to any company or corporate organization?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's something I know firsthand. I know that experience. I've been doing HR for 18 years for a number of companies, and I'm also striking out on my own, but still have my day job because I actually like my day job. You have to begin to think about your strengths, like who you are, what you're good at, that you're known for in the workplace, and then you have to start thinking of the world as your client. So when we're in the corporate space, we think of our company and our employees and our connection, our teams and our colleagues as our client, like we work for them. So now you're going to go to a place of me Inc. So company me Inc. means that everyone you interact with is a potential client. Everyone you see is a potential opportunity to network and collaborate. So when you do that, you need to put information out there. People need to know who you are and how they can really connect with you. And so what's going to be key in that situation is, again, making sure your LinkedIn, your social media, your Instagram, all of those convey that you are someone that is a thought leader. And a thought leader means someone who is sharing information, right, giving their opinions on something because you're knowledgeable about that particular topic. You're giving your opinions, you're sharing information, you're educating people. And sometimes you have to do that stuff for free. When you give that information for free, then people begin to see you as an expert or someone that really knows their stuff, because no one's going to trust you or buy anything from you if they don't really see what you're doing that's very effective. So when you're striking out on your own, you're really going to have to become a thought leader. You're really going to have to be someone who's seen as knowledgeable and have and connect with people. And the only way to do that is to write articles, speak in engagements, participate in meetups, network with people, all of that, and also comment and share information on social media that's relevant, that's part of your industry. All of that goes towards helping you build your brand outside of the company. And always keeping in mind that people are pretty much just your client now. Everyone in the world is. And so you're just no longer under the cover and the shelter of a company.
Yeah, I really appreciate that advice, Janet, about kind of being more thoughtful and really thinking about, okay, who am I as an individual? What story do I want to tell? And if I didn't have this company backing me, how would I go about kind of spreading my message or talking to people? And in that same vein, it seems that everybody now is a blogger. Everyone has an opinion. Everyone has something that they want to say. So Katleho wants to know, how can you build a brand that actually is different? If everyone's writing and giving their viewpoints on LinkedIn and everyone is popping off online, how can you make sure that you do stand out and you are differentiated and you do become well known for those things that you care about? Kind of any advice that you have for that one?
Yeah, the key there is not to look at what everyone's doing. You know, it always feels like this age is different from 50 years ago, or this age was different from 10 years ago. It really isn't. People, if we really think about even what we're talking about, there's a great book that I love to read. And the book was written by Marcus Aurelius, who is a Greek emperor in the 100 AD, okay? And his advice are things like, you know, you wake up every morning and you make up your mind to work as hard as you're gonna work today and focus on yourself. Now, that was written in 100 AD by a Greek emperor. If you read any blog or any quote that you see on social media, there's a quote that looks like that, right? So what you have to remember is everything has pretty much been done before, unless we start creating iPhones or we start creating ways for people to smell food through Instagram that's not created before. And those are a little bit different. So don't beat yourself up if you're not exactly doing something earth-shattering. What you have to remember is you are sharing your thoughts, you are sharing who you are, your life story, and that's always going to be different. No two people have the same story. So if you have the same message as a different blogger, and if you have the same message that other people who are popping up everywhere, continue looking at your work sharpen it, only compete with yourself, sharpen your pencil around what you're doing, really focus on improving yourself, reading, learning more about your industry, or reading stuff that doesn't even have to do with your industry, making yourself be more, advancing yourself. People will see that because people don't connect with just brands, they connect with people and their story and their authenticity. So if you continue to be authentic, you will shine at some point. People will notice and they will connect with that. So that should be your only focus when you are entering a brand that is saturated. Find a way to make yourself be different, and find a way to really share your story and your path, and focus only on that. And sometimes other people die out. It's really a race of survival, a race of who's really committed and who's grind. Because a lot of times other people fizzle. You know, Oprah was probably one of the people that really was there at the end talk show. There was like so many other talk show hosts. I forgot the woman with the red glasses. And so many other people were in talk shows, afternoon talk shows, and she kept going. And in the end, she was one of the long lasting and the most person that really grinded, and she did hers different. She wasn't the only talk show host. She's memorable because she did it her way and she was unique. And then in the end, she outlasted everyone. So just keep grinding, keep going, find your space, do your thing, and don't focus on anyone else's.
Love it. Well, I don't think we could have closed on a better note than that, but I did want to ask one last question. Evelyn actually is in the banking industry, and she has an interest in moving to HR. And, you know, even though she has a background in banking and finance, she also has really good people skills. So her question is, how can she translate those experiences from another industry to move into the HR field? And this will be our last question for you today.
Well, that's a great question. It's a great note to end on because it's all about managing your career, right? And so if your career has gone to a place where you want to transition, you definitely want to take down and look at your resume and look at all of the places that connect to the field you want to get into. So if you want to get into HR in banking, I'm sure you had to have compliance, and compliance is a big part of HR. Compliance in banking is following the federal regulations, rules, guidelines. So you want to message in your resume that you're someone that's able to read laws and guidelines and be able to interpret it and quickly take action. Another piece in banking is probably managing customers and clients and accounts of your clients and your customers at the bank. In HR, you have to manage people, manage their payroll information and their employee information, their records. And so all of that translates. So in that case, there's so many things to kind of translate. You just kind of reword it in a way that shows that at the end of the day, you're focused on people, you're focused on all the elements that make sense for HR. So when you do that, that can help you easily translate. But with that said, you can get your resume perfectly and it can sound great. But there might be an HR director that won't take a chance on you because you don't have specific HR experience, you have banking experience. So in that situation, I would recommend you would most likely might have to take a step backwards in your career, which means that you might have to take an entry-level HR job that doesn't require any experience. And then you're gonna have to maybe take a pay cut and take that job. But I guarantee you, if you take a pay cut or take a step backwards and do an entry-level HR job, you will get all the skills you need, add the skills from the bank, and your trajectory would just shoot up because you'll be way ahead than someone who's completely green. So just know that any transition with a new career might mean you take a step back down on the ladder, and be open to that if that's really your goal, is to be moved to a new department or a new career. So that's right.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Janet. We really appreciate you taking the time to share your expertise and talk about career branding.
Thank you. All right. Take care, everyone.
No problem. So definitely, if you want to watch the full recap, it'll be available on youtube.com/SheLeadsAfrica. And make sure you've joined our community at SheLeadsAfrica.org for access to more great experts and advice to help you live your best career or professional life. Thanks, everyone. See you next time.